Welcome to You, Me, Empathy, a safe place for leading with your heart. Hey, thanks for being here. You, Me, Empathy is the official podcast of the Feely Human Collective, a collaborative mental health community designed to empower each of us to grow our capacity for empathy, vulnerability, and emotional wayfinding. Just a friendly reminder that this podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only and is not a substitute for medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. No one is just a silly boy with a feely heart. You can support the show by leaving a review in Apple Podcasts, following us on social media at Yumi Empathy and Feely Human, and joining the Feely Human Collective community at feelyhuman.co. And now your host, Known Wells.
Hello, Feely Humans. Welcome to another episode of Yumi Empathy. My name is Known Wells. I am the creator and host of Yumi Empathy, this podcast. I'm also the founder of the Feely Human Collective, a collaborative mental health community designed to empower our collective powers of empathy, vulnerability, and emotional curiosity. You can learn more about that and read the show notes for this episode at feelyhuman.co. That's feelyhuman.co. This episode is episode 209 on my first year of sobriety. This is a special episode, and by that, I mean I am being interviewed in this episode, and I invited my dear pal Emily Lynn Paulson, who is fantastic, who is brilliant, who is wonderful, who is a Feely Human herself. She's a recovery coach. She's author of Highlight Reel and founder of the Sober Mom Squad. You can follow her on Instagram at Highlight Reel Recovery. Do that. Your life will be better for it. In this conversation, Emily and I talk about my first year of sobriety from alcohol and what that means, including a reflection on my drunk teenage years, why this sobriety feels different, how my mindset has changed since becoming sober, and how sobriety is a byproduct of deepening my self-awareness. We talk about how I started drinking at the age of 13, how I nearly got kicked out of college for starting a drunken fight club, how I was cited with 2 minor impossessions of alcohol by the time I was 20, and so much more. Just lots of drink talk, lots of self-awareness talk, lots of empathy talk. Really, really enjoyed this conversation. And I wanted to give a shout out to Emily for her 5 years. She recently reached her 5-year sobriety mark. Congrats, Emily. That's an amazing achievement. I feel like 1 year is huge for me, and you're at 5. It's wonderful. Not that it's a competition, but I'm just grateful and was grateful for you to be a part of this episode, and grateful for you, listener, for listening, for supporting me, for subscribing, for rating and reviewing this podcast. Let's get to 200 ratings. We can do that in Apple Podcasts. Hope you love the episode. A couple of announcements. Please, like I mentioned, please rate and review this show in Apple Podcasts. I would love to get to 200 ratings this year. Can we do it? 200 ratings in 2022? I think we can. We're about 30 from 200. So we can do that. I think that's doable. Yes, I think it's doable. The other thing I wanted to mention is on Patreon. I recently revamped my Patreon to really just have a single tier. And that tier is $5 a month. You get a bonus episode of the podcast every month for $5 a month. It's a way to support me on an ongoing basis. And occasionally we do some hangs as well. But if you can do that, that'd be wonderful. Patreon.com/feelyhuman for that. The last announcement is the most exciting, which is starting on January 21st, I am leading with Feely Human. I am leading a monthly, for all of 2022, for all of this year, I'm leading an emotional check-in, which I'm calling Accountability for Your Heart. It's a monthly Zoom gathering where Feely Humans, like you, from across the globe, come together to deepen our growth, healing, and connection through vulnerability, empathy, and emotional curiosity. This is a safe space for sharing all the brights and darks and everything in between that makes up your beautiful Feely humanity. If you're looking for a consistent space to be seen and heard as your whole self, the Emotional Check-In series is for you. It's a space to also hone your active listening skills, grow your empathy powers, and witness how wondrous vulnerability with safe people can be, again, it kicks off January 21st. It's $120. Just be upfront about that. $120 for the year, for all of 2022. It's a monthly check-in. It's the third Friday of every month at 4 p.m. Pacific time, starting January 21st at 4 p.m. Pacific time. Sign up before we start. I would love to have you there. So if you're interested to learn more and want to sign up, or if you have questions, let me know. But if you're interested, go to feelyhuman.co and click the banner at the top of the website there. I would love to see you there. I would love to have you there. It is a way for you and I to spend more time together. It's also a great way to support me and the work I do. So thank you for that. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoy this special episode with my pal, Emily Lynn Paulson, on my first year of sobriety.
La la la, you, me, empathy, yeah, la la la.
Hello, Feely Humans. It is me, Known Wells. This is a special episode of You, Me, Empathy. As you notice, I'm not doing the traditional introduction. I am here actually as a guest of my own podcast, which feels special and fun and exciting. I'm here with Emily Lynn Paulson, who is going to be my interviewer, quote unquote interviewer today. We are talking about my first year of sobriety, and we're just going to have a conversation about it. I think I have a lot to say. It was a powerful and insightful year for me, and hard in many ways, and bright in many ways. And I wanted to explore that with a friend and someone who is doing tremendous work in the world of sobriety, and just a tremendous writer and sobriety awareness. And she's at Highlight Reel Recovery on Instagram, and she's wonderful. And her name's Emily Lynn Paulson. Hello, Emily.
Oh, thanks, Noan. Hi, everybody. It's great to be here. I'm never the one asking the question, so this is a first for me. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, I'm excited that it's going to be fun for you, and it's okay if it's a little anxiety inducing too. Flipping the format like this is maybe giving me a little anxiety too. So you're not alone if you are feeling some of that.
Yes, very good.
So where would you like to? Actually, let's start with you sort of sharing a little bit about the work you do, and then we'll get into kind of my first year.
Yeah, for sure. So I have been a recovery coach for about 4 years. I'm coming up actually on my 5th year of sobriety in a couple of days.
Yay.
And that really brought me to kind of what you have done, exploring my own past, my own story. It led to me doing a lot of writing and reflecting and realizing that I really like to work with people in recovery. And with that, and then came the pandemic, and finding that women and moms needed a place to meet and talk about all these things. I founded the Sober Mom Squad. So that really is my project now. It's basically a parenting group for women who are exploring or living an alcohol-free life. So that's kind of my project right now, and that's where I spend most of my time. So that's me in a nutshell. And I'm also the mom of 5 in my vast spare time. I'm a mom of 5 and live in Central Oregon.
Amazing, mom of 5. That's tremendous. Well, I'm so grateful you're here. Let's do this. Where would you like to start, Emily?
Yeah. Well, I guess I know that for everybody, the decision to get sober isn't just, okay, today I'm done. It comes with a lot of sometimes fits and starts and lots of day ones. Like, considering that you have probably done this before, what's different about this year?
Yeah, wonderful question. I've been reflecting on this question because it's something that has come up from Jessica, my wife. It's something that I've asked myself. It's something that the Feely Human community has asked me too. And I think that it's to do with the sort of self-awareness work that I've done. I've had a long history of drinking. I started drinking at the age of 13. I joke that I stole, warm bottles of Chardonnay from my parents, from the garage, and knocked the top of the bottle off and just sort of chugged warm Chardonnay. That was sort of like my first experience at 13, and it's looking back on that feels hard and that feels sad, and I sort of feel for that young boy. So I've had lots of by the time I was 18, I sort of was tired of drinking, and I quit for a period of time, continued again, and right around the time I met Jessica, I had quit for a period of about 4 years. And then it was simply, I think, probably a bit of vanity, a bit of like, oh, this is quote unquote unhealthy, right? It was sort of ascribing to a certain societal structural thing. And this time it felt, and it continues to feel intentional. It continues to feel like aligned with my heart and aligned with just sort of the growth that I'm doing as a human person living on this pale blue dot. It just continues to feel intentional. It continues to feel meaningful in a lot of ways. And with that, it's been hard. Like, I've had lots of ups and downs, and but honestly, this year has been one of, if not, tremendously difficult, one of the most sort of growth-oriented years of my life. And I don't think it's all because of becoming sober from alcohol. I think it's just sort of where I'm going, and sort of the natural byproduct was to quit drinking alcohol.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, did you have moments through your life? I think a lot of people who maybe consider themselves high functioning say that they hit it really well. Did you have any moments where you had consequences, or where people did say, maybe you're drinking too much? Did it ever come up?
No, and that's it. It really hasn't. I've maybe had like a couple of moments in my life where, well, I'm going to rewind, because that's not entirely true. So at the age of like 19, 20, I was in college. I mean, the listeners know this. I started a fight club in my freshman year in college. It was alcohol infused. That was sort of me trying to process trauma in the way that I knew how, in a terrible way. But I also got 2 minor impositions of alcohol at the age of, I think, 19 or 20. And the second one, thankfully, the friend who had that experience with me, his father was an attorney, and was able to like, hey, Judge, if they go to like a month of AA, can you sort of expunge this second one? I haven't talked about that on this podcast before, but that was I was 19, 20 years old. I sort of, I took it in stride. It felt, I don't think I got this sort of, let's learn a lesson here, son. I didn't get that. It was like I'm just going through the motions here a bit. And so when I think about like my drinking, it has been quote unquote high functioning. I don't even know if I like that word, and I would be curious to hear your thoughts on that phrase. But I've been silent. Like, I'm a silent, like, my trauma has always been like, trauma response has always been like, let's hide, let's get silent, let's sort of be in my own pain and not let anyone see it, right? I don't want anyone to see that experience in me. And so my drinking has been the same way. I've always been able to drink heavily and not sort of be physically too impaired. And so when I bring these things up to friends and say like, hey, I'm becoming sober, the response is like, oh, I didn't know you had a problem, or great for you, but like it doesn't really impact me. And I what is interesting about that is like I sort of wanted, I think I if I'm being honest, I wanted that reaction. I want like, great, that's amazing, wow, like, you know, but I'm not getting it, and I'm exploring what that means for me. But yeah.
So, oh my gosh, a lot of stuff there.
Yeah.
So I think it's interesting when you talked about getting the minor in possession at, 18 or 19, that the consequences of it were, I mean, as a teenager, you think you're invincible and all that stuff that goes into it, right?
Yep.
But the consequences were kind of minimized for you.
Yes.
And I think that probably set the tone for like, that wasn't really that big of a deal. And when you have other people around you who are justifying the behavior that maybe innately you knew was a problem, or you knew you didn't like, it's easy to kind of brush it off. So you have someone who's an adult telling you, it's okay, let's just let this pass. I mean, of course, it's not going to be that impactful for you, right?
Yeah.
And when it's funny that you mentioned the high functioning. I really hate the term high functioning. It's just what people know and hear. Yes, because at the heart of it, you are not functioning at your highest potential if you're drinking. Like doesn't matter what kind of a person you are. It doesn't matter how you look on the outside, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think it's just that idea of people don't know what consequences you're having, good or bad. Because I would consider myself high functioning in the sense that nobody knew what was going on, but I had DUI, I had all that stuff. So I had the rock bottom stuff. So that term to me, I hate that term.
Yeah.
And when you talk about other people and their reactions, I'd love to talk about that a little bit more. Now, do you think, and this is, I don't know, this could be an open-ended question. Do you think the people in your life are not uninterested, but don't have necessarily a big reaction to it because drinking isn't a big deal for them? Or it says something about their drinking, or maybe it's a little bit of both?
Maybe a bit of both. I would say the former, certainly. There's this anecdote to this, which is recently I was having a conversation with Jessica about, I like to go hiking in the woods and often by myself or with our dog Maddie. And Jessica one day is like, I would like you to just understand and know, like, Google, like, what happens if you encounter a mountain lion. And I'm like, my first reaction was like, oh, I know that, like, innately. Turns out I did know some of the things, like you do. But my response to her was like, no, was resistance, right? And I think that it's related to this, which is me resisting that is like, I have this, kind of cavalier attitude about my life sometimes. And I think that extends a bit from like being raised in Christianity and sort of not being in that world anymore a bit, right? And also feeling when I was growing up, feeling that I would never even make it to 20 years old, right? And now I'm 40 and like, what a life. Like I'm living every day, right? So like I want to be present and I want to be like YOLO, whatever, right? But also the reality is my choices impact others. I'm not thinking of the context of this, my life partner who I love so deeply and friends who cherish me and stuff like that. And so when it comes to drinking, there's this, I went through so many moments and my brain was occupied by it daily, Emily. Like, and this is sort of like the cognitive thing that people don't understand for people who have trouble with alcohol is like, I was thinking about it constantly. So I would vacillate between, you're just going to die and that's fine and YOLO. And what does it even matter? Right. And also the like, but you don't want to spend all your time thinking and fretting about this. Like consider all of the space that you can free up. Right. And consider Jessica and consider your friends. And so I'd vacillate so quickly between those two things so often. And, it was just lacking kind of empathy. It was lacking nuance and the calm and stuff that I think I've started to like deepen into in my own self-awareness work, which is like, what am I missing in the in-between that I'm not getting because I'm like so either in this world or not, or like fretting about like, all this alcohol I'm drinking, or not thinking about mountain lions. I'm all over the place. I don't know if that answered any questions.
No, it does. It does. And I think you talk about an interesting point that when you haven't given up alcohol, you don't realize how much you think about it. The mental load of alcohol, whether you're drinking it or not, how much you're thinking about that next drink. Am I going to drink tonight? Did I drink last night? Did I drink too much? Just the thoughts that swirl around in your head. And, it's interesting, you, me, empathy. I mean, your podcast is all about empathy. Do you think giving up alcohol has made you more empathetic?
I think so. Absolutely. Because really the work of empathy, I kind of liken it to the work of, whether it's anti-racism work or, becoming sober or whatever, it's about deepening our curiosity and our willingness and comfortability with going into sort of hard, messy, gray, mushy places that challenge our own bias and that challenge our own perception and that put a light on the assumptions we make of each other and the assumptions we make of certain people and certain cultural norms and all of that stuff. Like that is the work of empathy. It's not a checkbox. It's an ongoing, active, hard thing. And so, absolutely, like when I was drinking, in the space of drinking, I would every day starting at, 3 p.m. or whatever, that was all I was thinking about, right? Like when would I start? How much would I drink? Oh, I can start drinking the glass of wine at this time. And I don't have a problem because I drink wine and I don't drink alcohol or whatever. I'm sure you've heard that a million times, right? Like that funny thought, right? So like my brain was just so consumed by it. And now that it's not, it's uncomfortable at times, right? Like I don't have that crux or crutch or whatever you call it, right? It's just I'm wandering and I need to investigate and I need to not subdue myself, right?
Yes, that need to numb. And I think that's so common, especially, I mean, same with me. I drank for childhood trauma and didn't realize it, right? Through the years, that's just, you drink to cope. And whether that's coping with, I'm stressed out about making dinner, it doesn't matter. When you are drinking to numb, and then you no longer have that numbing solution, you have to either sit in your feelings, which is uncomfortable, which can turn people to drink, or you have to figure out a way to be comfortable being uncomfortable, and figure other outlets.
Yeah.
And I loved how you talked about the curiosity, because I think this is something that I'm seeing changing in the sobriety, alcohol-free, dry. I mean, everyone has their own, verbiage around it in this space, is that it's not coming from a place of, I'm bad, I've done this horrible thing, drinking's terrible for me, it's making my life awful, and now I need to stop and have this other awful life of restriction, right? It's more of a, let me explore how alcohol is serving me or not. And that the goal doesn't have to be, okay, I'm going to be sober forever, but where is it? I think as people investigate, it's like, oh, wow, this really does make me not sleep as well. Oh, this really does make, where it's not as scary to go into something like this and say, let me just see what this is like, and let me just see how I feel.
Mm, yeah,
Right.
absolutely. That's it. That's everything. Yeah, and it's, I think that's the work of living. Like that is it. Like that is the richness. That is how we become better humans. That's how we connect and, communicate better and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking about how, my sort of decision to become sober and going through this first year was not littered with like these rock bottom moments necessarily, but really they're just not these, like, I didn't get the DUI, but I certainly had driven drunk and
Mhm.
could have killed myself, could have killed someone else, right? And so now that I'm like sober from alcohol, I'm reflecting on those experiences in a different way, with a lot more curiosity, with a lot more like space for like, oh, I hadn't thought about that before, right? Um, and that is so fascinating to me. And I think it's you're right. I think it's because now that I'm not occupied, I have all this space, and it's not without its difficulties, right? I have major depressive disorder, and this year I upped my medication, and back in October I was experiencing suicidal ideation and having those self-harm thoughts again, um and wanted to drink, and like thought about like, oh, I should just obliterate myself. And I didn't, and I'm proud of that. And it's hard.
Right. And it can be both, right?
Yes,
It can be
always.
really great and beneficial, and also be really, really hard.
Yeah.
Now, with that mindset, like that ability to pause, where else have you noticed? Like, I mean, obviously, you just described how you had these, horrible thoughts and feelings, and you were able to stop, you were able to be present, think about it, not do anything about it. And what eventually it worked itself out.
Yeah.
What other changes have you noticed, like in your mindset, in your head, in your body, that you attribute to being alcohol free?
Well, I've been, for the first time, like, so last year I gave EMDR a shot for a couple weeks, and I don't think I was ready for it. And this year I sort of started again, and I started again a couple months ago, and we're really just starting to kind of uncover some things. And one of those things is my history of really fully disconnecting from my body, just having no relationship with my body. And so one of the things that has changed immensely is really like wanting a relationship with my body, and really desiring, even though it's been hard, and even though it's probably going to be a life work, wanting to have a relationship with my body that's not sort of driven by self-hate and driven by frustration. Because I had an eating disorder for a decade, right? I have like all of this intestinal issues, and I think those are remnants of my eating disorder. And I grew up sort of in an environment where my mother was an aerobics instructor, and that sort of informed ideas about my body and who I was. And I was an athlete and that sort of thing. And a lot of it was like, you deserve pain, be in pain. That's the norm, like be in pain. And so one of the gifts of becoming alcohol free is really like relinquishing some of that control around my body and what that looks like, and giving my body a bit more softness and curiosity and love that it so richly deserves. And I'm very new in this journey, and it's scary because I have the eating disorder history and I have like these things, but it feels good. It feels like it's going to be really, really fruitful. And the other thing is just clarity of mind. I mentioned, just being consumed daily with those thoughts about alcohol. I just have more clarity of mind, in the work that I'm doing with You Me Empathy and the work that I'm doing to Feel a Human. Just like my mind's going a mile a minute about all these exciting things that I want to do. And, of course I have to like temper that and not sort of buy into the internalized capitalism that we all sort of face. But it's also exciting. It's like, like I have like all these ideas. I'm writing more. Like I'm a writer, like in my core, I'm a writer, and I'm writing more for the first time this year. And I think that absolutely has to do with me becoming sober.
Yeah. That's the first thing that I did was start writing. Like, well, I got to process this, right? I got to figure out, how did I get here? And realizing how much of that brain power you have that was used up for something else.
Yeah.
When you were talking about EMDR, I have a very similar background with the eating and the body issues and everything. It took a long time for me to be able to, part of EMDR is installing a safe place, right? Installing like a safe place you go when it gets, and it took so long to go there because I was so disconnected. And I think it's a really common, and it doesn't have to be eating disorders or anything like that. But, if you've ever had cancer or any sort of disease, anything that your body's kind of betrayed you, it's such a common thing for people to think, I either have to love or hate my body, right? And it doesn't have to be this way. Something that really has helped me through this process is this idea of like the neutrality, that you have a body that gets you from point A to point B, and there are things you can do to make it feel better or worse. But it doesn't have to be this thing where you have to love your body. I always felt that pressure of like, and that cognitive dissonance, right? So I think getting alcohol free and really diving into EMDR really helps me connect with the fact that this is just a vessel of who I am. It carries me from point A to point B. I don't have to love it or hate it. It can just be. That was really transformative.
Awesome. I love that. That's such a wonderful insight. And it goes to that what we're talking about in terms of the deepening of curiosity and softness that is crucial to growth, like that the in-between space, the liminal spaces, right? That, so much of the world is wanting to pit things against each other, create these binary lenses on experiences, right? These binary lenses on things. And you're right. The reality is like, there's so much more beauty. There's so much more richness in that liminal, mush.
Yes,
yeah.
Absolutely. Now, one thing, Jessica, and this, if this is too personal, obviously let me know, but is she a drinker? How does this change because I know with couples, it's a big thing. Like if one spouse drinks and one doesn't, or one never did, and how has it changed your guys' relationships, or has it made a difference at all?
Yeah, great question. She does drink, but very lightly and very irregularly. Maybe she'll have a drink on New Year's Eve or for her birthday or something, but it's like a handful of times a year, really. And so in that sense, it hasn't changed our relationship in that way, but I would say it has changed our relationship also in pretty spectacular and massive ways, in that I am, again, we have to go inward before we go outward. So I am deepening my self-awareness. I am doing all this curiosity work. And that leads to a lot of reflection about how I'm living and how that living impacts others. And that other person is this love of my life, Jessica, right? And what does that mean for our relationship? So we're having deeper, richer conversations, I think, at the direct result of me doing my own work, right? We were talking about this just the other day, and Jessica there were definitely moments in our life where Jessica said, "You drink too much." And it's interesting because like she would say, and she had said, and it's the truth, that I would sort of I would just like reason my way out of that, right? I would say like, yeah, I'm fine. I'm okay, right? All of these things we say. And she was, she was right all along. She knew it. But she also knew that I was still doing my thing, right? I was like still doing all the laundry and making dinners and making her lunch for her work or whatever. I was like still like very much the high, quote unquote, high functioner, right? But she saw it. Like she saw that was not a good thing. But it's also not her job to say, to like make me stop or whatever. That's not her job. That's on me. And I'm grateful that I've gotten there. But to go back to your point, like I think anytime we do work of sort of self-exploration and deepening sort of why we do things, why am I drinking so much? What is that about? Anytime we sort of do that work of asking those questions, the sort of the expansiveness of that sort of reaches beyond us, right? We reach the people in our lives, like that relationship grows and enriches because of that internal self-reflection.
Right. And ultimately it has to come from you. Like, even if she had said it more often, or other people had said it, if you ultimately didn't have that desire to change something, that's why a lot of interventions, a lot of treatment programs, a lot of these things where people are forced into it, don't work, because at the end of the day, you have to look inside and see, like, what is the thing that I'm needing here? It's not the beer. What is it? What am I drinking for?
Yeah.
You really have to do it yourself.
Yeah, it definitely, it makes me think about just like alcohol and the industry itself, the industry of alcohol. It's insidious. Like all of these systems of like really bypassing and denying parts of ourselves. Like they're all like that, and sort of wellness culture and all these like cultures of like bypassing wholeness. Alcohol is a piece of that, right? And I see that now, but I couldn't see that before,
It's this interesting thing that socially we just have always ignored. Right. And you can look back and see the repetition, like with cigarettes. I mean, doctors used to prescribe them. They used to be in like basically candy machines, everywhere you look, and it did shift. And I do see the shift starting to happen. I'm glad that there is more of a conversation around alcohol is not wellness, that it's not this black and white. You either have a problem or you don't. It's just there's this substance. It's really not that good for you. Let's look at how we can decrease using it a little bit. And let's talk about some of the benefits. I do see it shifting, but I think it's going to take a lot. There's a lot of money involved. There's a lot of big corporations. I mean, capitalism and patriarchy and all that fun stuff. But I do think more people are talking about it, and it does make me feel more optimistic.
Did you have heavy drinkers in your family growing up?
I did not. Okay. And I will say that when you go take those quizzes online, right? Like the many times I Googled, do I have a problem? That was one of the things that I was like, I can't have a problem because my parents didn't drink. I think maybe I saw my dad have a beer once with a buddy. My mom had champagne in my wedding. Like those are I can't remember ever drinking occurring in my house. And so I checked that box like, oh, well, I didn't grow up with it. Clearly it's not in my DNA.
Yeah. Interesting.
What was your experience?
Yeah. I asked because my parents were, and I think, I can only speak for I don't know if they still are, but they were heavy drinkers, and just didn't have a great relationship, and so I don't know if I can make that connection, but they just drank a lot. And I even remember my mother buying me alcohol in high school, like buying me beer for a party, like in high school. And I remember that being like, oh wow, like that's a thing that happened. And, not to blame anyone, but it was just like, this was the setting, right? This was the setting, right? I remember there being, like I mentioned, the Chardonnay I stole, right? I was able to do that because like there was so much wine around. And my parents would have these like Christmas parties, and, it seemed like everyone was just getting sloshed, right? And it was just the setting of it. And, there's alcoholism in my family. My Uncle Joe was an alcoholic, and I would argue that certain other family members in my direct family have, alcohol troubles. And yeah, it was the setting, it was the norm, it was the language, I guess,
Yeah. And that really, that permissiveness, right? That I think we're learning a lot about now. Actually a lot of what I talk about now is the messages that you send to kids are really powerful, even if it's just the funny t-shirt or, that every kid's party has alcohol. The message that you're sending, it does impact kids greatly as they grow. And then when you do get the minor in possession and it's waved off, of course you think it's no big deal, right?
Yeah.
I think that's a good, with our like similar experiences, some not similar experiences, like it just goes to show, like, with enough of a substance over a long enough period of time, anybody can get addicted to alcohol. Anyone can have a problem with it. And so I hope for anyone listening to this who thinks like, at least I know I listened to stuff like this for a long time thinking, okay, am I that bad? Do I need to quit? Mm-hmm. Like, I think that's important to say, like, you decide how bad it gets. You don't have to hit some proverbial rock bottom or check all those boxes or say, well, my parents drank, my parents didn't drink. Oh, I've had this problem, I haven't. You get to decide when it's enough. And I think by you, showing up one day and just saying, I think this is enough for me, I'm going to be done. And now a year later, being able to reflect on that, that's really powerful.
Yeah, it wonderfully said. And listeners, absolutely. It don't, like, it's not these, I think culturally we reward these huge romantic gestures, big things, right? But reality is change happens in small moments and small steps. And if it feels like it's weird or uncomfortable, or it's not maybe suiting you in some way, explore that and take that road and see where that leads you. Because it is a deeply personal thing. It is a deeply personal decision. But I believe as we deepen that self-awareness, we deepen our empathy too. And we start to consider, like, okay, like, how is this thing that I'm doing, this occupation with alcohol, this experience of alcohol, how is that impacting my community? How is that impacting the people I love? And that's what it is. It's not about like saying, you said it before, Emily, it's not saying alcohol is quote unquote bad or good. It's not it's not a right or wrong thing. It's about deepening that curiosity and deepening that softness to explore, to ask the questions.
Yeah. And having that empathy for yourself. And I don't know if you've had any, over the year, I know the first few months, 6 months for me, those memories start to come back, right? Those things that maybe, those text messages you sent or the thing you said while you were drinking, like those things you remember. And there can be a lot of shame associated with that. Did you have any periods of time where you thought, the feeling of what you did while you were drinking and reflecting on those moments?
Yes. I think it was, I think I in a lot of ways pride myself in being a person who is thoughtful and caring and kind and empathetic, and I am those things. And I think that I tend toward giving myself a hard time and being really hard on myself, right? I think a lot of people who have had childhood trauma can probably relate to that. And so when I was drinking heavily, I think a part of me, I think unknowingly for a long time, was holding on to a lot of shame that I was simply doing a thing that maybe felt out of my control. And as you know, there's a lot of control response, at least initially in trauma recovery, which is like, I got to hide. I don't want anyone to see people. I don't want anyone to see me and my joy. I've got to hide. I got to protect myself from that. I got to survive. I got to protect my softness, protect my sensitivity, all of these survival sort of control responses. The eating disorder was that too, right? I got to control the food because I feel out of control, right? And so when I reflect on the drinking, it did feel like I had no choice in the matter. It felt like this was the thing I do. It was just like the thing I did. It's about time to make dinner. You pour that glass of wine, right? You don't think about it. You just did it. And I think I had a lot of shame in that because I wasn't making my own choices. It was like my biology, my trauma response was making the choices for me, and I had shame in that for sure.
Yeah. It's those daily habits you don't realize that become so automatic until you disrupt them. And then you're like, wow, I was just doing that every night and didn't even notice.
Yeah.
And then you have the space to really, really think about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you had some questions submitted from Instagram.
Yes.
So I'm going to start asking you those.
Sounds
if
good.
that's all right with you.
Oh, yeah. Please.
Okay. So this is from Tristan. How long did it take you to get used to really not drinking? And he goes on to say, it definitely took over a year for me.
Yeah. Hi, Tristan. Thanks for asking this. How long did it take me to really get used to not drinking? I think I'm still, working through that. I think I'm still processing that. I think, early on, maybe the first 3 months, it was a lot of, I think a bit of like, oh, I'll drink tea instead, right? It was a bit of that, right? It was like, oh, I had this, I need to go through the motions of like maybe putting liquid into my body, and I was drinking more peppermint tea, and I still drink tea. I love tea, but I think I'm still just processing that. It's I don't really know. It's because it's really, I still have moments where I think, oh, I should drink. I still have those moments, right? And it's still maybe even a little like uncomfortable being around people who are drinking. I'm still experiencing that. So I think that's going to take time. I'm wondering what that was like for you, Emily.
Yeah, I think the change takes time. For me, it took getting through every season. So it was a good year until I could then be like, okay, I've done this before. And then you know what to expect. And then it just gets easier and easier. I mean, when you come from a career of drinking for 30 years or however long, and then you've had a year of not, obviously it's going to take longer to like reestablish those pathways. Everyone's different, but I think getting through that first year is really key, because after that, then you've done it before and you can kind of just keep going.
You said something very profound and empathetic and beautiful, which is you've done it for 30 years. Like, if I'm reflecting on that for myself, what a beautifully compassionate response is to say, no, you started drinking at the age of 13 and you stopped at 39. You had so many years. Give yourself space to be a little fallible and not have to be perfect and whatever it may be. Like, give yourself that space.
Right. Yeah. Like, what if someone said to you, okay, you've been walking since you were 1, but now we're going to go back to crawling. It's going to take you a while to figure out how to get around. How do you get up the stairs? Like, it's changing a fundamental part of how you used to deal with life.
Absolutely.
When you think about it, it's a huge change. So anyone listening to this, like, give yourself so much grace and then give yourself more. And also realize it's this idea of the substance versus the user. Like, it's not the person, it's the drink that you're putting in your body that changes all those things. It's not you. It's the drink, right? Or the substance or the behavior or the eating disorder or whatever you're using to numb. That isn't you. Like, you are not the things that you do. You are not the substances you put in your body.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just like you are not the depression, you are not the anxiety. Those may be parts of you, but they're not the whole of you, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, and you kind of already answered this. Tristan also asked, did you find it difficult to be around other people having drinks?
And I would say yes. That I think still feels a little sensitive, and I'm getting used to that. But at the same time, like my friends aren't huge drinkers. Like, they're not getting drunk or doing anything like that. So, but I still, it feels sensitive still.
Yeah, it's a change. It's a big change.
Big change. Yeah.
So Z asks, what's something you wish you knew when beginning your sobriety journey?
So I reflected on this a little bit, and I sort of highlighted it before, but I mentioned that I felt like I wanted some big reactions from close friends and Jessica certainly. And when I didn't get that, it brought up some shame and this feeling that, like, I need to reflect on why that is, why they didn't have this big reaction, why I felt like I needed this big reaction and change. And so I think what's something I wish I knew is that maybe I don't need those big reactions. I don't need these big moments. None of us do, really. And just another permission to myself to say, look, every moment is an opportunity to reflect and to be curious and to lean deeper into this self-awareness work that is the core of our growth and connection and healing globally and internally. So, just permission to, like, deepen, permission to ask the questions, permission to, like, uncover what that shame is about. Because I think before it would have been a little harder to unearth.
Yeah. And I think so much of life is tempering our reactions to other people's reactions to us, right? What we expect other people to think, or, when you go into anything with a certain expectation and it's not met, it's like, oh, where did I fall short, or what did I do wrong? And the fact that you have friends that, you said, oh, I'm not drinking anymore. And they're like, cool. I mean, that's such a small part of how they see you. Like, you're the same friend we've always had, whether you're drinking or not, you're still that same friend. And when you look at it that way, it's like, oh, it's not even that. Of course, they're happy for you, but it's such a small part of who you are in the whole scheme of things. So that's really cool.
Thank you for that. That's really special, because it's funny, this thought, like I keep reflecting on it, because I think a part of me, if I'm being honest, Emily, a part of me wanted this known as sober, like, oh my God, that's amazing. Like, all, like, just people around me, like, yes, you're amazing. Oh, good for you. Like, oh my gosh, let's make a Hollywood film about your story. Just like all this, like, and that's fucking ego. That's like, like, you don't need that. We don't need that. And it's funny that I'm unraveling that now, I think.
Yeah, but it's okay to be your own hype person, like your own cheerleader, right? Like, it's a really awesome accomplishment.
Yes.
And so I think it's great. Like, I think this doing, like I told you from the beginning, like doing this, I know you had reservations about, oh, is this self-indulgent or whatever? Like, this is what it's all about. You set out to do something, you stop drinking, you have wisdom to impart on other people about this process. People every day who are doing those Google searches saying, am I an alcoholic? Do I have a problem? Will my life be better? How's this going to work? And, if you can spark that change, that curiosity for one person, like what a gift that is, right?
Well, you're a gift, Emily. Thank you for saying that. And thank you for doing this. This has been special and lovely. And I really feel seen and heard. So thank you for doing this. Before we go, tell the listeners what's exciting for you in 2022. Like what are your, and we don't have to talk about resolutions, but maybe like a personal goal of yours that you want to sort of explore this year.
Yeah. My goal for 2022 is to say no more often. That sounds very negative.
Love that.
But I have found the more things that I really stop and say, is this something first of all, is this something I need to do? Like, as a part of daily life, feeding my family, generating an income, like there are just certain things you have to do. And does it bring me joy? Or am I just saying yes to this because it checks some box or makes someone else happy? Like, I really, really stop to think about things now. And so that's my goal, because the more things that I say no to that really don't light me up, I end up being able to say yes to, playing a board game with my kids, or just sitting on the couch and watching a movie with them, or doing things that really matter more to the people who matter the most to me. So saying no is my non-resolution resolution.
I think it's beautiful. That's a boundary. That's self-honoring. I think that's lovely. I love this for you, Emily.
Yes.
And tell the listeners, the Feely humans out there, where they can connect with you.
Sure. So I'm on Instagram, Highlight Reel Recovery, and also at Sober Mom Squad. And I have a website, emilylynnpaulson.com, and also sobermomsquad.com. So that's where I'm at the most. And if you have any questions, you can reach out.
Lovely, lovely. Well, thank you for being a part of this, special episode, Emily. I really appreciate you. And thank you, listeners, for being here. And I hope all of you, this maybe spurred some reflection and some of your own curiosity and softness. And remember that you're not alone in this journey. As much as the world wants to say that we're these individual beacons of strength, conquering the world and winning and fighting and killing it and whatever, crushing it. We're not those people. We're soft and curious and sensitive, and we're better with each other. So keep feeling your feelings, keep deepening your own empathy and self-awareness. And thank you for being here.